When people ask me, what do you think about AI? I think it is the most significant lever we can pull on in our lifetime to create economic value for our organization. It was March 2016, right before March Madness, but it wasn't March Madness. It was at the Four Seasons in Seoul, Korea. It was Go Madness. This is the DeepMind Match Challenge. This is Google DeepMind. And they had developed a machine learning program to compete against the 9-dan champion of Go. Now, for those of you that don't know, Go is an incredibly complicated game. Go does to chess what chess does to checkers. With chess, the first move, you got 20 possibilities. With Go, you've got 300. When you do the back of the envelope, it was one of the harder challenges in artificial intelligence. They had beaten a European champion, but he was kind of a hack. So they said, let's take on the Tiger Woods of Go. Let's take on Lee. And he predicted famously, yeah, I'll take your 150 grand for the challenge. I'll beat you 5-0. And everybody knew that it was at least 5 years away, probably 10 years away in most data science community. But something magic happened. And if you haven't seen the documentary, here's a QR code to it on YouTube. It's free. It'll blow your mind. Move 37 of game number 2 blew the greatest Go player alive's mind. It was a move no human being would ever make. And it was a move no data scientist thought a machine would ever make. And the plane, as they say, landed early. And it's always going to land early. Everything seems to happen ahead of schedule. Agentic is happening ahead of schedule. If I talk to you next year, I'm going to tell you quantum computing and its impact on software is going to happen ahead of schedule. What does this mean? It means that everybody in this room should have an intense curiosity to reach that peak of understanding about the basics of artificial intelligence, its economic impact, how we can explain it to people that we work with, and how we can achieve what I call learning effects. You might have heard of network effects, but when it comes to technologies like AI that create that fear factor, as we learn the first thing and they try to catch up with us, we're already on to playing Go. I'm telling you, I think agentic is going to be a very big deal by next year for a lot of businesses, whether you attach to a platform like a Salesforce or like a Microsoft or like an Oracle, many players are there, HubSpot's there, or whether you decide to build your own agentic solution. I believe we'll look back at ChatGPT as the picks and shovels of the AI revolution, where it created more work for you than it did solve things for you. Because the idea of that is exciting. I'm super passionate about agentic AI. I have been since 2022. I'm just so excited about that great leap from supervised to unsupervised and everything in between. And researchers are just saying, hey, agentic is the future. Because when you think about it, we've moved from prediction to suggestion, but with agentic, we now have execution, and that is seismically more impactful on the velocity of a business. The most important thing about AI to me is that for the first time in history, we have decoupled prediction from judgment, which used to live in an expert who would say, based on my 40 years of being in business and my gray hair, I predict you should do this, and I pass judgment that you will do that. In other words, in a single moment, an expert prescribed. But the problem with experts is they're expensive and they're on, as we like to say in football terms, expiring contracts. And their expertise becomes obsolete long before everyone knows their expertise is obsolete. And so the beauty of artificial intelligence is that when you decouple prediction from judgment, the machine makes the prediction to scale and the human being passes judgment. MIT professor John Horton talked to me about this. He says, Tim, in 5 years, we will declare this the Rick Rubin economy. If you notice, Rick doesn't even have his hands on the faders. Rick doesn't play an instrument, never went to engineering school, but what has Rick got? He's got judgment. First time he heard Beastie Boys as a frat band, he knew there was something there. Convinced them, even though they were great musicians, rap was going to be their thing. Champion Public Enemy, made the Red Hot Chili Peppers' best record, put Johnny Cash back in his seat before his passing with arguably his best record ever. Rick could listen to something and figure out what to subtract to help it reach the listener, and that's a judgment. And I want you to think about how you recruit people into your organization that have judgment, because here's the problem. In the last couple of layoff years we've experienced as we keep waiting for this recession that hadn't happened yet, We let go of a bunch of people that we ask, what did they do? And we kept a bunch of experts with technical skills, and we let a bunch of Rick Rubins go on the street. So I think we have to reorient ourselves to find people that have a sense of taste, have a sense of acumen, have a sense of decisiveness, and those are the most important people. And finally, return on AI. Show me the money. Now this is one I've had to spend a lot of time interviewing chief financial officers, especially ones that are owned by private equity. And it's really interesting. They have attitudes and opinions about artificial intelligence. And by the way, they're not right, they're not wrong. They are the culture of the buying organization, so you need to align to them. If you either are trying to convince your organization to invest in artificial intelligence, or you sell artificial intelligence and you're trying to help the customer see the value, there's really 4 things you have to think about. If you want AI to pay you back, the first thing you have to do is start with the problem and not the technology. Number 1. When I go do on-site strategy days with companies about AI, it's always the business team, never the tech team. We start with the business team. We identify business challenges that have a material impact on either the valuation, the P&L, or the value creation plan. And then we do what's called a work back to identify, is it a culture problem, a production problem, a market problem, or a prediction problem? If it's a prediction problem, then it's AI addressable. If it's AI addressable, at that point you begin ecosystem research, but not before that. See, the problem is sometimes what happens in an organization is they get excited about a type of technology, and it has to go finding a job once you buy it in your organization. Or worse, you go to technology and say, what should we do about AI? And they start where their data is the best or their partners are the most ingrained and installed. So if you start with the business problem and work backwards, you'll have a natural connection to real business metrics they care about. So for example, if any of you have worked with a chief financial officer on go-to-market investment, like investing in sales or marketing, there's a metric they always use, and it's a challenge. It's called lifetime value customer acquisition cost, or better known as LTV CAC. And there's a ratio for it. And when LTV CAC's around 2 to 1, they're breaking even. 2.5 to 1, pretty good business partner. If the LTV CAC gets above 3 to 1, I'll buy all they've got. So I believe that if you start with the problem and work backward as an AI provider or as an investor in AI, you peer to a real metric they care about like that.